Hi, everyone. I'm Sandra Ingerman,
And I'm Renee Barabo.
and we welcome you to the Shamans Cave. This is a remarkable opportunity for us to gather together and to enter the Shamans Cave together to dream a new world into being. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Shamans Cave. This is Sandra Ingerman, and it's a beautiful day here in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Oh, and it's an awesome day here too in Palm Desert, California. We have just been having the most wonderful, wonderful spring, and I'm Renee Barabo.
Yeah, so we have a wonderful show for you today. One of the things that Renee and I have been doing is we've been sharing topics that are important to each of us personally, but we're also pulling off the emails when a participant or somebody who's listening or viewing our wonderful show has a topic suggestion. And so today we're working on a topic that one of our subscribers brought through, and it's on the important topic of anger. And wow, there's so much anger in the collective right now. Even if you're not angry, there's anger in the collective right now. It's a really big issue that we're all dealing with. And how do we start to work with that feeling of anger that starts to push through, which actually on a lot of levels has an amazing amount of creative force because there's so much passion behind it. But as I'll talk about later, what does that force end up feeding our collective that's already filled with so much anger? So Renee, I know that you have some interesting words on this topic.
Yes, many years ago, when I went to, I think I've mentioned that I was in a lockdown ward, and I learned a lot of information from that early psychiatrist. And one of the things he prepped me with for my life was that he said, when I got angry, because I had a vein of anger running through me that probably, as you said, I transmuted and put into very many creative resources over my life. But he told me when I got angry to stop and take a look and see where I had just been hurt. Because for me, hurt transmuted into anger, so quickly that there was not even like a stop and reset. And so that was one of the things in my life that I've had to really work with. Okay, when that anger comes up so quickly, where did I just get hurt or perceive that I was just, not validated, or I just didn't get my way, or all of those things. So I've done a lot of work on anger in my life.
Yeah, that's a really interesting concept. I really like that, or perception of when you're feeling angry, look at a hurt where you've just been hurt. That's really brilliant. I've actually never thought of it like that. For me, I grew up in Brooklyn. I grew up in a Brooklyn family, just like you see on TV. And I lived in a neighborhood, the archetypal Brooklyn neighborhood, and anger was everywhere. There was screaming out of the windows all day long. That's all you heard as a little kid going around. And so I learned as a little kid to react, when there's an energy I don't like, get angry, get big, get angry, fight. My father grew up on the Lower East Side, and so, he had to learn all those skills to survive. And so it's been a long journey for me of learning how to, instead of reacting immediately, how do I take a step back for a second and just go, is this reaction and the size of this reaction, the exponential size of this reaction, is this appropriate for the situation? I mean, what are you even angry about, you know? And it's been really interesting for me because it's almost like I've learned over my life that anger became a habit, you know, just a habit. I just flipped into that state no matter what. And like you, it's been a lot of years, but my anger is so toned down at this particular point. Maybe it's age, but it's just really toned down.
It reminds me of a couple of things with some clients. Is I told one client that for a long time I had to put on my computer screen a little sticky note that said, wait 3 days. And I suggested that they wait 3 days. Well, I'm not going to care about it then. I go, precisely, you know, or like the other day was someone was saying to me like, well, do you want me just not to care about any of these issues out in the world? And I'm there like, well, it's not about not caring about the issues. It's about how, if we can be of service, when we think we can be of service to everything that's wrong out in the world, we're really of service to very little. You know, what is right in front of you that you really can affect the change with today? Like, can you help your neighbor carry in a bag of groceries? You know, we want to be so big that we want that anger, what you're talking about, that screaming out the window, let them hear me kind of anger, when I find that the best that I can do is tend to what's right directly in front of me and limit to those other external factors that can feed in. I mean, you can, if you want to be angry, you can have plenty of stimulus out there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you know, an important teaching that I teach in my Medicine for the Earth work is we're human beings. We were born into this world of duality and separation. We are nature. And so I think I've talked about this in other shows. We're part of the phases of nature, the phases of the changing of the light, the phases of the changing of the season. And so we do live on this planet of separation where we have days of light, and then at the end of the day, the sun goes down and the moon comes up and the beauty of the night sky comes and the seasons change and we flow through the different seasons. And what that means for us is we also come with this flow of emotions, like the wind that can be still, but then the wind that can come through and start blowing down houses. We also came here to experience the entire range of human emotions. That's part of being human. And so it's not about saying, I shouldn't be angry, I shouldn't be sad. We came here to experience bliss, joy, anger, depression, hopelessness, the whole range. That's why humans are here. And the wind is a great teacher for us around that. It's, again, what's the energy that we do with the feelings that are coming up right at the moment? Because what in shamanism, it's understood that there's a very big difference between expressing and sending. And so when you say, I am angry about what's happening in the world right now, that's your birthright, and that's the truth, and that's what's happening. But if you go into the unseen realms and you look energetically of what happened to the rest of the collective and to you when you were emoting so much energy and so much emotion, you see in shamanism, it's like psychic arrows and psychic darts go into the collective. They come back to you because everything sent out comes back to you. They go to your loved ones, your pets, the nature beings that you love more than anything. It goes everywhere and it affects that. So in shamanism, the key is to express. That's your birthright. It keeps you healthy. But then transmute the energy behind your anger. So what you're feeding into the collective, to yourself, to your loved ones, to the earth, to all of life is love.
Absolutely. And one way you can remember this is what Sandra was kind of talking was that butterfly effect, but I'm going to share something about the wind. So imagine here I am in Palm Desert today, and I'm enraged, and I'm sending that out. Well, the wind right out the door is going to pick that enraged energy up, and that same wind is going to travel over to New Mexico and then down to New York, and then it's going to go over to Europe. Because remember, the wind is the same wind goes around the world in a few short days. So if we're all throwing out anger onto the wind, we're gonna have some chaos brewing in the wind. And I really sense that a lot going on, especially in the spiritual community. The other day, after I did a beautiful ceremony online, I get a message. Well, that was a really nice ceremony, but what do you eat? And I'm thinking like, oh, I'm getting set up right here. What do I eat? I'm a chef. I love food. I love all of the rituals around food. And over the years, I have my green juices, but I'm somebody who believes that if we go back in time, we were hunter-gatherers. When we needed certain things, and where we got out of relationship with this, and I took the bait. I couldn't help it. I took the bait. And then, I was like, I stepped back and said, like, just, go in peace. I'm not going to judge your ways. And I'm sorry that, the wind work doesn't appeal to you because I don't eat the way you think I should. And
Right.
So much of anger is what you think I should be doing.
Right. Yeah, there's a big judgment issue. And it's interesting because I'm teaching this beautiful course on nature right now. And it's really interesting because we do have that range of population in the course of what we're all going through on a spiritual level. There's people who are waking up to a different dimension of life, to the beauty of life, as Indigenous people did. They had so many struggles. We know that. We don't have to talk about that. But that didn't affect the joy shining out of their light and out of their body, because they had their creation stories, they had their prophecies, and they understood what I was sharing, that we're part of a phase of nature, and that this is where we are, and things are going to change like things always change. And in the spiritual community in the West, we put things down to a very limited time. It's like, if we can't create that change right now, I'm not sure I really want to stick with my spiritual practices. I want to see that change. And so I'm seeing the beauty of the opening, of people opening to the amazing beauty that's all around us all the time, and how the trees are trying to talk back to us, and the rocks are trying to talk back to us, and the wind is talking back to us, and on and on. And people are actually leaving that dimension of anger, and they're stepping into a place where Indigenous people were able to maintain that beautiful inner landscape. And then there's those of us, and I'm just seeing this is not a good or bad, we're just seeing the whole realm of the spiritual community. And then there's people who are really stuck in the cruelty issue of how we're treating nature right now. And what I've shared in the group is I go back and forth between both, because I'm human. I have my days where I'm so angry at humans and can't believe the density of how we're treating other beings. But yet what does that contribute to them? And what does that contribute to the planet? So how do I go below my anger and go into my spirit self and start to emanate kindness, treat nature kindly, and emanate love and light? And how does that start to change the density of consciousness? And somebody made a remark when I shared a post recently about the March equinox, the equinox that just occurred, that we have to stop working so much in the ethereal worlds, and we have to start taking more action. And again, it's both. It's both. But the point that I was trying to make is that the collective, the denser collective, has fed so much energy into it. There's no way to make a change because the energy field of the denser collective is too strong. So if we stop doing our etheric work and only look at what actions can we take, and yes, we have to look at what actions we can take, but if we don't push, if the spiritual community doesn't get that power and transmute their energy into the energy that can change the energy of the collective, we're not going to see any change.
That so reminds me of many years ago, I went on an artist retreat for a month in northern Vermont, right at the edge of Canada. And it was the Tibetan monks came. And they made their mandala, and then they, one day they chanted, and they chanted and they chanted. And it was like the first time when I went out under the evening sky that I could feel this portal, for lack of, I didn't even have any words back then to describe it, but there was like this clear channel of energy that was emanating over this town, up in northern Vermont, and it just felt pristine. It was silent. It was emanating, and that sometimes when I go on my wind walks or I experience it out in nature, like that moment of absolute like oneness, where all of these other things, they might be going on, but they're not going on in my reality in that moment. And I just keep believing that if we keep expanding on that thought, that belief, that moment, if more of us got present, we would be navigating from this place of an aware consciousness that would really, do something. And even like when I'm not getting my own way, like this week, I was like, I'm not getting my own way. Nah. And then I'm like making a list for the, our talk, because I knew we were talking about anger. And it was like, no, you didn't get your own way, but look, what you did get, 5 things that I could be grateful for that weren't even things I was putting any effort towards came.
Oh,
no, yeah, well, just, like our talk show, which I love so much. And, my book has its own life. It doesn't have any, it has its own place in that bigger 4 billion year cosmos than me. I have nothing to say or do, you know what I mean? It's just like, and so when we really put our own little petty needs and wants into perspective of a much bigger plan, then really where are we sitting with this idea of how do we transmute it? How do we really move it energetically into, and I think for me, a lot of times it comes back to really looking and being in gratitude for what I have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one of the arguments that people love to start sharing with me on this conversation is from a spiritual perspective, and those people who work a lot with oneness and work a lot with frequencies and energy talk about that in the world of oneness, when we move out of this sense of duality and we move into that dimension of unity and oneness, there is no anger, there is no good or bad. There's just energy. There's just energy. And that is absolutely positively true. And I think that for me, that, again, for some of us in the spiritual community, that can become an excuse to be a rageaholic, because I've watched people actually do this. It's amazing how many people I've watched do this who are spiritual, have strong spiritual practices. I can rage and it doesn't matter because all energy is neutral. It's just energy. And that's true, but how does that help us evolve as a human being? Just to say, I can rage and scream at people and honk, and it doesn't matter because it's just energy. What about how we act from kindness and how we act from a place of love? So do we start with step by step, first learning how to be a person who expresses but then can transmute? Do we start with that to raise our consciousness before we take this huge evolutionary leap into, I can say whatever I want to say and I can express whatever I want to express because all energy is neutral? And in the end, that's true. But have you changed your behavior to reflect on what that even means? It's important in the world that we're living in because so much negativity is being fed into the collective right now.
I don't know for me that I really believe that it's neutral. And the way that I judge that, or I judge it, or come to that discernment about that, is that my belief is that your body is your compass and it's going to tell you absolutely everything you need to navigate through this life. It's aligned to the magnetic poles. We're just a reflection of this. And I know for certain when I sent that email before 2 days, or when I told you just how mad I was at you, or I yelled it out, the next day, take a scan of your body and see how you're feeling. And if you've ever been an addict and you don't use anymore, let me tell you, for me, I will always have a physical hangover that I just barfed my stuff all over somebody else so that I could feel better for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, because then you have to go into these other processes once you really do that. So, when you're really angry, and one of the things that I have done to release things is one of my teachers had kick and scream, go back into that place of kicking and screaming and moving your head and really moving it out. But I really feel that that's not expressing it out towards anyone else, but just kind of releasing it in a fundamental way. Because when I do spit it at you or throw it at you, the reaction in my body always tells me that it's not just energy.
Yeah, and one of the things that I share in all my books and in all my classes is all the examples of people going to shamans in other cultures with cancer or other illnesses. And when the shaman does their diagnosis of talking to the spirits, they come back and say, somebody sent you anger. And so it really is an issue. It's creating emotional illness. It's creating physical illness on our planet right now, and learning how to behave. And I'm using the word kindness a lot. Kindness seems to be my word in the last month or so. When we can show kindness and we can express love and radiate light, that same change, what you were talking about, Renee, that brilliant. I have the same thing. I have a hangover after I send. But imagine what the next day feels like. I can't even express what it feels like to me when instead of sending that angry email and I explore what's below my anger and I move into that place of love and light, I wake up the next morning and with a hangover of love. I wake up with a smile on my face, which is not that common. And, and I feel really good, like a beautiful flow move through me. And I still feel the benefit of it. You know, it's almost like a drug high. I feel the benefit of it in my body. And so, you know, there are benefits that we get. We are contributing to the world, but we're also contributing to our own health.
Absolutely. Those peaceful winds are way better magic carpet ride than those other bumpier storms. This is such a big topic that we've decided to carry it on into the next show. You want to tell everyone what we're going to do next?
Yeah, so one of the things I love to do is I love when I work at a group and a retreat center, I love to do fire ceremonies because fire is such a transformative element. I mean, wind is too, all the elements are, but I love to work with fire as a transformer of elements. And now that I'm doing so much online teaching and thousands of people are joining around the world, years ago I started leading virtual fire ceremonies where we have the opportunity to release to the fire that which needs to be transformed and transmuted. And so that's what we're moving towards. And so I invite you for the show, if you have a drum or rattle or another shamanic instrument or musical instrument that you would like to play and be active during the ceremony, I invite you to have it for our next show.
Absolutely. And before we leave, I just have to slip in one more thing. Sandra, you can't have your fire without my wind showing up. So we're going to bring the wind into this ceremony as well. And you need all of the elements. We're just kind of joking about that, but I love fire too. It's like, it's probably the most expedient way that I know to release.
Yeah, but there's no fire without wind. So.
Right? We just have to remember, we got to, these winds have really good sense of humor.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we're going to see you back next week with the Shamans Cave. And remember, if you want this in your inbox, you can go over to the shamanstv.com and sign up for, and it'll be delivered Sunday morning, about 5 after 10 in your inbox, and you'll be there, get it first without having to look for us all over the web. But we are live at the Shamans Cave as well on Facebook. So you'll find us in one of those places.
And always go to shamanstv.com because that's where we post all the details and information.
All right. We'll see you again soon. Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you, Renee.